What's cracking, y'all? You are now watching Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today.
So this has been a hot topic this summer. The 2004 Detroit Pistons versus the Kevin Durant and Steph Curry 2017 Warriors. I believe, I don't know who the argument was in between. Was it Rashid and Draymond? I can't remember. I'm sure Johnny Arnett will bring it up in his video because I think that's where all this kind of started from. But you know, that's tough. That's tough. Me, I would probably lean towards the Detroit Pistons, and I get it. That 2017 Warriors team was balls to the wall, potent, especially offensively, shooting the ball, etc. But like that Detroit Pistons team is defensively equivalent to what they could offer on offense. And this is coming from a lifelong Lakers fan that had to deal with that team in the finals. And I underestimated their defense going into that, thinking that we'd win that series no problem. And boy, was I in for a rude awakening. That was an all-time great defensive team and arguably the greatest defensive team of all time, man. Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace, one of the greatest defensive players ever, holding down the paint. He's also an undersized center, but he was that great. Then they eventually picked up Rasheed Wallace that season, Tayshaun Prince, Rip Hamilton. Did I say Chauncey Billups? I think Chucky Atkins was on that team. He wasn't really like a great defensive player, but Lindsey Hunter, their coach, Larry Brown, Joe Dumars was one of the assistant coaches. Eldon Campbell was on that team. I don't know who I'm forgetting, but collectively as a unit, dude, those guys were monsters, causing havoc with the defense. You got everything from length to mobility, power, size. They can hit you all kinds of ways with it. Here's some stats I dug up on their defense because I think people really underestimate how tough it was to score on that team. I don't give a damn how good your offense was. They was putting the clamps down on everybody. So after acquiring Rasheed Wallace, that Detroit Pistons team, get this. They allowed 79.7 points per game for the rest of the season and the playoffs. That's 49 games. Under 80 points per game. In the regular season, not including the playoffs, that number was even lower, 78.9 for the last 26 regular season games. When you talk about regulation in the playoffs, they only allowed 78.6 points per game. They never allowed 100 points after acquiring Rasheed Wallace. You could not hit those guys for 100. That's for the regular season after Rasheed Wallace. They never allowed 95 points in regulation in the playoffs after acquiring Rasheed. I understand how potent those Warriors were. I watched it all. I watched all their games. But Lord Jesus, those Pistons were a nightmare. And I still have nightmares of that Detroit Pistons team. I do. I've never seen Kobe Bryant struggle the way he did with that team in 2004. Never. Not only that, man, they were wearing you out with Rip Hamilton running around screens all damn day like Steph Curry. That also affects you coming back on the other side of the court. Having to chase that guy. Brother. Hey, if I in a 7-game series, I'm leaning Detroit Pistons. And I get it. Kevin Garnett, Steph Curry, they move the ball really well, motion offense, but that Detroit Pistons team never had to double team anybody, really. They weren't out here doubling like that. They were switching everything. And they had lockdown defenders that were also good team defenders. And like, I love KD. He's one of the greatest scorers ever seen. But how I saw KD struggle against Boston's defense a couple years ago in the playoffs, I'm like, what do you think that Pistons team will do to Kevin Durant? And granted, he'd probably get some easier looks with the Warriors than he did with Brooklyn, but bruh, they gonna put Tayshaun on KD. And KD long as hell, he got length, but Tayshaun Prince has length too. And he's an exceptional defender at that. It ain't gonna be easy for KD. And just like people are gonna have to chase around Steph Curry in those screens, somebody else gonna be chasing around Rip Hamilton on those screens. Billups can do an admirable job on Curry. And if he loses them, I trust the Detroit Pistons, being the all-time great defensive team that they are, to appropriately switch and the next guy pick up Steph as he's running around the court. And I ain't worried about Draymond Green. He ain't doing nothing with Ben Wallace or Rasheed Wallace, baby. Nothing. I feel like they can effectively guard the three-point line, though that wasn't something back then so much. But listen, man, it'd probably be a close series, but people are going to say, oh, well, that Detroit team couldn't score. They couldn't score. Okay. They couldn't score as much as a lot of teams they went up against. But their defense was so good, they didn't need to match the other team's scoring output that they put on other teams. Because they wasn't going to allow you to score all those points. We only need to score more than what we allow you to score. That's all I'm saying. Anywho, let's see what Johnny Arnett has to say about it.
Y'all lost to the Pistons in 04. And by the way, them my big bros. I love them. I respect them. But, like, they scored 70 points a game. We would have mopped them.
You would have mopped them, too?
They scored 70 points.
Let me see.
Would the 2017 Warriors beat the 2004 Pistons?
Y'all was barely winning. We have an NBA record that will never be broken.
What's that?
When we kept, I think it was either 6 or 7 teams under 70 points in this scoring era.
Yeah, that never get broken.
That will never get broken again. We were defense. We hung our hat on defense. We would have beat the out of them. And I'm going to address that because Draymond said this bullshit.
Draymond killed you.
You crazy.
Man, you can't guard Draymond Green.
He said this bullshit the other day on him and Shaq's podcast.
Did he just say you can't guard Draymond Green? Draymond would have killed Rasheed Wallace? Listen, man.
We would have beat the out of them because, for the simple fact, they couldn't match up with us at any position.
All right, so today's video is not something that's breaking news or even something that many people would think warrants a video. It's just a fun topic of debate and something that I think is worth talking about and something that I really wanted to give my 2 cents on. So Draymond Green and Rasheed Wallace, 2 guys who are known for getting lots of technical fouls, albeit being incredible players as well, have been having this beef about which team would win, the 2017 Golden State Warriors or the 2004 Detroit Pistons. Just a quick recap on these 2 teams. The 2017 Golden State Warriors famously signed Kevin Durant in the prior offseason and then stormed through the regular season and especially stormed through the playoffs as they went 16-1 in those playoffs. Now, on the other hand, you have the 2004 Detroit Pistons, who was a very defensively minded team, to put it lightly. A more accurate assessment of them is probably that they were the greatest defensive team of all time, or at the very least, they were in that conversation as they were regularly holding teams under 70 points. And famously, they put the clamps on the 2004 Los Angeles Lakers, who had Shaq, Kobe, Karl Malone, and Gary Payton. People act like that team wasn't a championship Lakers team, but the reality is they were on their way until they ran into that wall that was Detroit. Now, you saw Rasheed Wallace's original take at the beginning of this video. Draymond Green actually responded to that on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it. And he tweeted this: Sheed, we would have smacked y'all. Y'all was scoring 72 points per game. That's not winning a half. Just to interject real quick, that is major cap, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, it's the era.
And we putting you on them big ass forces in every pick and roll. Let's see how you move your feet. That one ring was great though, big bro. We all appreciated it. So obviously some great shade thrown in response. So here's the thing. You're talking about two totally different teams from two totally different eras. I will say the most frustrating part of this entire debate between Rasheed Wallace and Draymond Green is not one time did anyone bring up pace. Rasheed Wallace did bring up the physicality of the 2004 playoffs in comparison to 2017, but let's be honest, nothing affects the score of the game more than the pace of play. You could talk about physicality, defense, three-point shots in different eras. The reality is, if the game is at a snail's pace, it is going to dramatically affect the score of the game. And that was the case for the 2004 Pistons. Throughout the regular season, the 2017 Warriors actually averaged about 13 more possessions per game than the 2004 Pistons. But what's even crazier is that the Warriors actually picked up the pace in their playoff season, while things slowed down for the 2004 Pistons. Again, if the Warriors are getting 14 to 15 less opportunities to score on every single night, then of course scores are going to be dramatically affected. Regardless, Golden State is going to be nearly impossible to put the clamps on for just about any team. But these 04 Pistons were not just any other team. I actually think they matched up with Golden State quite well. Chauncey Billups was their starting point guard. He's going to be guarding Steph Curry, and Chauncey Billups was a two-time All-Defender. It's not a bad matchup. Richard Hamilton has a high IQ and he's good at coming off screens. He'll be a good candidate to guard Klay Thompson. I'm not saying they're shutting these guys down, I'm just saying that they'll do a decent job. And then a small forward for Golden State, you have Kevin Durant. And again, there's nobody that can stop Kevin Durant regularly. But I will say, when you're looking at the vast history of NBA defensive players, and especially wing defenders, one of the guys who stands out as a good candidate to contain Durant is actually Tayshaun Prince. He's 6 foot 9 inches tall with an incredibly long wingspan, and he was one of the best defensive players of his era. Very few players can match Durant with his length, and Tayshaun is one of the guys who actually can.
Johnny Arnett saying what I was saying in the intro. But I know he's gonna flip it and give the Warriors pros, so I'm here for it, Johnny.
Draymond guarding each other on the court, and I think we all can admit that would be highly entertaining, especially when you bring their antics and attitude into the equation. And then at center, you're going to have Zaza Pachulia and Ben Wallace. And especially when it comes to the boards and the defensive play, Ben Wallace is going to be eating him for lunch. Again, Warriors are threats all over the court. They have incredible scorers, they have incredible shooters. You're not just going to clamp these guys across the board. So trust me, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Detroit's one of the teams that actually might be well suited to defend them, especially when you consider how they're arguably the greatest defensive team of all time. Draymond's tweet said they were scoring 72 points per game, and that's not true. Sure, there were some games where they scored 72 points, but they were actually averaging 87 in the playoffs. And again, that's still not much by today's modern standards. But when you look at less three-point shots and about 15 less possessions per game, it starts to make sense. Now, the one thing about the Pistons is they don't really have that advantage on the offensive end. That's why the 2001 Lakers always seem like the ideal matchup for the 2017 Warriors, because we all know Zaza Pachulia wouldn't stand a chance against a prime Shaq. Shaq's easily getting 40 points and 20 rebounds on every night. Because Ben Wallace is such a limited offensive player, they don't really have that advantage. So I think the most difficult part for Detroit is not slowing down the Warriors' offense, but it's just keeping up with their offense with their own. Now I gotta say, these guys are both very biased to the teams they played for, and that's rather obvious, you expect that. But neither guy is giving the other team enough respect. I always think it's funny when old heads act like they would mop these great modern teams when they didn't even mop the entire competition they were up against that year. The 04 Pistons are a great example of that. For goodness sake, they went to 7 games in the Eastern Conference semifinals that year against the New Jersey Nets, And again, as much as I love Jason Kidd, Kenyon Martin, and Richard Jefferson, they're not the 2017 Golden State Warriors. That series was up for grabs all the way up to the final game. And now you're trying to tell me that you're going to handle the Warriors in, say, 4 or 5 games? That's insane. It's the same thing whenever Kevin Garnett or any of the '08 Celtics go on about how they would just sweep through other all-time great teams. Like in your own playoff series in 2008, you went to 7 games with the Joe Johnson-led Atlanta Hawks, and then to 7 games with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who just had LeBron and a bunch of guys who weren't nearly on his level. So again, in order to earn that level of respect, in order to get into this conversation where you could just say, oh, our team would just sweep that other team, we'd whop them in 4 or 5 games, you gotta at least have handled your own competition in that era to that extent. Otherwise, you just look ridiculous. And in this case, Rasheed Wallace does look that ridiculous. Ultimately, in a hypothetical series like this, I think the Warriors win in about 6 games. I'm just saying that I think Detroit could do a better job containing them than they're given credit for, especially when you understand the context of the pace of play and how the game was played. The problem, and where Golden State is really going to take advantage, is the Pistons don't have any major offensive advantages. If they were stronger at the center position, then yeah, they could take advantage of Zaza. That's where other great teams like the '94 Rockets, the 2001 Lakers, the 1983 Philadelphia 76ers, or other teams like that would have a major advantage, because they have those all-time great bigs to take advantage of that matchup, and Detroit doesn't bolster that. Personally, this is just 2 highly emotional guys who are very emotionally attached to their teams and therefore really biased, making some ridiculous points and not giving each other enough respect. But to be real with you, I do think it would be a great series, and I wish I could see it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I may do more videos like this every once in a while when there's just something in the news or some guys are beefing and I just want to react to it and get my thoughts out there, because a lot of the time there's a lot that isn't being said that needs to be pointed out. Also, if you're waiting for the Ultimate Team series to get its simulation video, we are working on that. If you haven't checked out the Ultimate Team video, I'll have a link in the pinned comment, so please check that one out. But I promise you, it's coming. Just getting the rosters ready is going to be a lot of work. And I probably won't post it until the NBA Finals are done, that way more people will be looking and hungry for basketball entertainment. So let me know in the comments who would win this series and how many games would it take. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
In an alternate universe, now he's right about that dominant run in their era of basketball that team had. They only lost 1 game. But I'll never forget, I'm pretty sure that's the year where Kawhi Leonard was cooking the Warriors. I believe it was game 1 if I'm not mistaken. Cooking the Warriors. And then Zaza Pachulia slipped his foot underneath Kawhi on a jump shot. And then Kawhi was out for the series. It was looking bad for the Warriors. It was looking bad. They was getting mollywopped. And once Kawhi Leonard left the game, Warriors went on a run. But he was absolutely smoking those boys. I really wish Zaza Pachulia wouldn't have did that, man, because I think that series would have been really great with a healthy Kawhi Leonard. But it didn't happen, so it is what it is. But hey, I'm taking that defense over the Warriors offense. Johnny Arnett said he think it'd go 4-2 Warriors. I think it might go 7 Detroit Pistons. Then again, what rules are we playing by? That's another thing. If they're going to allow people to be a little bit more physical with Steph, I seen how Steph could get back then. When you allowed to touch him up a little bit, I'm just saying. And I know how KD is when you can touch him up a little bit. Anywho, let me know what you think about it. I'm sure most of you are going to go with the Warriors. I already know. I've seen plenty of you comment on that 2017 Warriors squad before. And some of you think that 2017 Warriors is the greatest team of all time. I won't go there, but I get it. Star power, the system, the ball movement, the team play, I get it. Anywho, I appreciate you guys for stepping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified. Catch you on the next one. We out, baby.